Welcome to the Solid Signal podcast for the week of July 18th, 2016. I've got an interesting topic for you today because I've been recently looking at some new antennas, and I don't really want to get too far ahead of that because I don't want to make it harder for our negotiating team who are working hard to make sure that prices are right and contracts are done. But it seems to me that it's more confusing than ever for the average person to know what kind of antenna to pick. After all, if you look back 50 years, there was pretty much only two kinds of antennas. There was the kind that sat outside your house, which looked like a big arrow, and there was the kind that was inside your house, which looked like a pair of metal rabbit ears. And that's pretty much all you had. Now, of course, antennas come in every shape and size, and it's very hard to know what you should choose, which one it should be, and, honestly, I could see where there's a lot of confusion. I recently looked at an antenna that looked more like an old 1950s UFO than anything else, to be honest with you. And that confused me a little bit. But I've seen antennas that look like, mailboxes. I've seen antennas that look like just a piece of paper. I've seen antennas that look like some sort of an old style washboard. If you don't know what one of those is, you got to kind of Google it. The point is that there's more choices than ever before, and none of these antennas have completely taken the place of those old arrow style antennas, which are more properly called Yagi antennas. And there's a place for those. There's a place for rabbit ears. There's a place for pretty much every kind of antenna, and it's really hard. Antennas can be a little bit of an art, not a science, because sometimes different kinds of antennas will work just fine for you, because with digital reception, if you're getting it, you're getting it. And if you're getting more than less, it really doesn't matter as long as you're getting digital reception. So that's what leads you to see that, for example, you may have one kind of antenna and your neighbor may have another kind, and they both work just fine. The truth is they're working better than they need to, and that's all that matters. The funny thing, though, is that even though antennas come in different shapes and different sizes, when you look at all of them, they really boil down to just one or two different kinds of technologies, and even that all tends to go down to the very basics of an antenna, which is referred to as a dipole. A dipole is really just a bent piece of metal where you've got a long bit of it that's sort of parallel to the broadcasting signal. In the United States, that means that it's going to be also parallel to the ground. Other countries, not so much, and I can explain that in another podcast, but take one of these things, bend it so it's parallel to the ground, and you've got yourself a dipole. You can make one out of coat hanger, you can make one out of bare wire, you can do whatever you want with it, and honestly, in a lot of cases it'll work just fine. When you need a little bit more, then you might want to take that dipole and package it in a couple of different ways. You might want to put it in a flat package so it goes up against a wall very easily, or in a round package so it's weatherproof. You might want to take it and put it in a box. These are all dipole antennas, but really what you're seeing is the packaging and not the antenna. Even when you've got one of those outdoor antennas that doesn't look like the traditional Yagi style, the chances are that if you're seeing two pieces of metal on that antenna, that it's actually using that same technology pioneered by a pair of Japanese scientists named Yagi and Uda that use basic math to show how antenna radio waves can be focused in a particular point using separate pieces of metal. That's the whole point of a Yagi antenna, and you can do it a lot of different ways, which is pretty obvious now when you think about it. So what can you do if you know that you want an antenna but you don't know what kind, and you think there are too many shapes and sizes and you just don't know which one to pick? Well, the answer is simple. You go to solidsignal.com and there's a little link at the top that lets you fill out a form, and real honest people, real technicians will evaluate the location that you're at and all sorts of other factors and recommend a good antenna for you. There's no substitute for real people, at least not at this point in 2016. Maybe in the future robots will do a better job, but for today, go to solidsignal.com, get a real antenna recommendation from real people. Until I talk to you again, have a great week.